Hello and welcome to another episode of the CG Garage. This is episode number 490, featuring Matthias Christen, who is the head of CG design over at The Scope in Germany. He is a really great person. We are big fans of The Scope because they were sort of instrumental in helping us in the production of Ray Tracing for the Win, the short that we did. And I was, if you want to know more about The Scope, go back to the episode I did with Farouk, who's the founder of the company, and learn more about them. But really great guys, and they've done incredible work. They do a lot of work in the automotive world. And they do these incredible landscapes. And I saw some of the work they were doing on landscapes, and I was thinking, I could really use some of this for the short, and to see if it would actually render in real time using Vantage. And Lord of behold, it did. So I contacted Farouk, and he got me in touch with Matthias. And Matthias has been great, really great. And not only did he help us out with it, but he actually flew out to Los Angeles and was part of our virtual production team out here in Los Angeles working on it. And it was really, really great to see him. And just to let you guys know, this is a sort of a big design that was sort of done by Erick Schiele, and sort of designed the whole city and the whole landscape and everything we had to do. And he worked very closely with Matthias to sort of form this whole thing. And it's a massive landscape, right? And you'll learn more about it in the in the podcast. But essentially, it was almost 2 trillion faces that were done for this landscape. It's just absolutely huge, and it rendered in real time during the entire virtual production shoot, which and never crashed. Again, also an incredible feat. I do want to sort of emphasize one thing. I know we talk about this technology and about how awesome it was to work with Project Arena, but really what it comes down to is actually, if you put these tools in the hands of really, really talented artists, that sort of opens up the freedom of what they can do and not having to fight any of the technology that they're working with. And Matthias is a perfect example of that, of an incredibly talented artist who gave us incredible work through his team over at The Scope and through his guidance, that it was really, really great to be able to have him on board with us. Really, really loved it. And, obviously, he was working very well as a team with Erick, obviously, who designed a bunch of the work, but also with our CG team, our developers, as well as what was going on set. So it was really awesome to have all that. This short has been sort of a reminder to me of what talent is all about, both from the technical side of things as well as from the artistic side of things. So really excited about it. Now, if you guys want to know more about the short, I would urge you guys to go to chaos.com. And it's right there on our homepage. You'll learn more about Ray Tracing for the Win, which is this fun thing that we did, which is really to test the tires on Project Arena. And we also have a behind the scenes, which I highly recommend you guys go check out to see a little bit more about how it was done. But it's Project Arena is our real-time solution for virtual production. And essentially we're using Vantage through Project Arena that enables it to go across multiple LED screens, and was used in virtual production that way. So really great product, which is very, very close to coming out and becoming a real product, which you can purchase. Right now we have a bunch of people that are trying it out and are giving us our feedback, but we're extremely close to that. So it'll be out very, very soon. And I'd really love to know more about what you guys think about it. So again, go to chaos.com for more information on that, and definitely go out and check out the short. We'd love to hear your feedback about that. It was a lot of fun. Okay, a couple of events that I want to let you guys know about. Go to chaos.com/events for this information. So first thing is Autodesk University is going to be happening October 15th through the 17th. So if you happen to be at AU, let us know. We'd love to see you. It's going to be I believe in San Diego this year. So again, that is October 15th through the 17th. And actually on October 17th, we will also have another Chaos Unboxed event in Mexico City. And if you're interested in that, make sure and check it out. Again, all of this can be seen at chaos.com/events. Now, if you want to know more about the podcast, our podcast page is chaos.com/CG Garage. We also have a Facebook page, facebook.com/CG Garage Podcast. And if you'd like to watch any of these podcasts, just go to youtube.com/Chaos Group TV. And if you have any other suggestions of podcasts, we'd love to, hear them. We always, we do respond to many of them, and in fact have followed up and had many of them on the actual show. That is, so just email us, labs@chaos.com. Again, that is labs@chaos.com. But for now, please enjoy episode number 490 with Matthias Christen.
Welcome to another CG Garage, where the Chaos Group talks. You'll know it's over when the last bucket drops. We're gonna fire off rays in high dynamic range. We know that ambient occlusion is passe. Global illumination won't lead you astray. And while image-based lighting is really swell, you need to make sure everything has Fresnel.
Last time we saw each other, we were having a steak sandwich, I believe, over at the Smokehouse in Burbank.
Oh, that was great. That was yeah. The whole trip was great. I mean, but that was the little cherry on the icing. How do you say it?
The cherry on top or the icing on the cake?
The cherry on top. Oh, right, exactly. Yeah. But both of it. It was the cherry on the icing.
The cherry on the icing.
No, that was really fantastic. It was great fun.
Yeah, it was fun. It was so much fun, and I'm so happy that you guys that the scope could be involved. That you guys really sort of committed to this as part of something enjoyable and fun, and that you were able to come here and actually see what you guys had created on the screen and be part of that. So that was. Just honestly, it was the best.
Yeah. No, same here. It's sort of like it was like a journey that sort of started with a very small little request and sort of got bigger and bigger, and suddenly I was sort of in LA and it sort of blew up, and I was just it was. It started like I think the request was, oh, could we just have that scene that looks great and it was fine, and then sort of. And then it got bigger and bigger, and it was fun. It was.
Well, let's go through that journey, but we'll start. We'll start a little earlier than that. Let's start about like your journey. Like, how did you get into doing computer graphics, and how did your CG journey start?
It started very unplanned. I never knew of CG graphics when I started my journey. Mm-hmm. I sort of gravitated over different people, different stages in my career or in my learning, and then it sort of came as it is. It wasn't planned. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be like a graphic designer or something. I always loved to draw.
Yeah.
So I come from the drawing side and the art side, and I would be fiddling and drawing stuff, and and I got great feedback. So, oh man, Matthias, can you draw this? Can you do this? Man, this looks great. How do you do this? And then, and it's sort of it was quite rewarding. So I always kept on doing that. So my first journey was to actually get all my pictures together after school and trying to get into an academy to do fine arts. So I did like everything I could, oil painting, different styles. It wasn't very creative, it was like more technical. So I could draw something very realistic, and everyone went, wow, this is great. And then it turned out I had worked a year pretty intense on like in Germany it's called Mappe. It's like all your collective, like a showcase of all your doings, which you take then and go to the try to apply for a place in some university. That was in Munich, and it went well, but it wasn't the place that where the people said, okay, what do you actually want to do with this? I mean, not just drawing something that looks realistic, but what do you want to say? I mean, it's like doing like a photo, like a very high-end realistic painting that takes a long time, and it's an arty process because you you train your eye and your hand, and you go through the colors. How did you mix an oil paint? How do you actually get that color? How do you actually get the right canvas? All that stuff. It does have a technical part, but it. Then I got the feedback. Why don't you go into an advertising agency with those pictures? I had no graphic or any computer background, and that's what I did. I took those pictures. I went to an advertising firm in Munich, and without having any knowledge of Photoshop, of Illustrator, and all that stuff, they actually hired me.
But you were a traditional analog painter, artist.
Exactly,
person.
yeah. I just scribbles and ideas and paintings and sketches, sketchbook everywhere, yeah. And then I sort of got in touch with, there's Illustrator, Photoshop. You can refine those images, do great stuff, do layouts. And it started out that I actually would do like storyboards and scribbles. So you would have like a campaign idea. The art director or the creative director said, come in with a client and we have this idea, sketch it down. And it was like sketching all sort of things, like little shorts for MTV, little, you would sit there, have like 2 minutes per picture, lay it out. And while they're talking, I would go, okay, this could be it. This could be it. Okay. Let's next frame, and just get
that's fun though.
Great, the grand idea, and sort of just placing the key visuals while they're talking, and that evolved more and more into, getting more computer, but that's sort of the first start. So very unplanned. It drifted in a very different way where I actually was heading to. But on that journey, I always discovered new sort of like places and interesting things.
Right.
And interesting people that were doing something very differently, but I thought it's amazing what they were sort of doing with all that computer stuff. And so, but it was very, very driven by still images, like graphic design, still paintings, and but I once had the idea to actually do like the backlots of big opera houses. The painting of those big stations.
Oh yeah, sets. Yeah.
On the set, but not on a film set, like on
the theater set.
Exactly. So I had contacts there, and it was sort of like interesting. This could be something. But somehow I didn't stick to it. It was close to getting there. Okay, maybe I'll do that.
Oh, it's so cool that you got back to that.
And and once I got hooked up with the whole advertising industry, logo design, all that Photoshop, the design element, all that, the big worlds of like with advertising, it was a lot more my field because the creative boundaries were sort of like set, and I could sort of do what I could do best, like getting all the big piece, the art, the craft in front of the client. And the tools, they would just change. That sort of evolved.
So you just went with the flow. You started with Photoshop, and then you needed to do something in 3D. How did you start to go into 3D?
That actually was quite a bit later. That was after sort of seeing all this advertising industry. I went to Hamburg because Munich didn't have a big agencies or good schools in that area. So I knew I had to go somewhere else where the people are who actually do the stuff. And that was Hamburg. Hamburg had very good agencies like Jung für Matt. On that time it was, big names, big people doing great stuff, very creative in the advertising industry. And they had a great school here, so that's where I went. Doing design, communication design, illustration design, and there was a bit of film on it, and it was a mixture of all kinds of things. So you sort of could look into every department, if it's topography, just design, layouting, storytelling, or just like concept and campaigns for, and that was interesting. And then I went more to the what do you call it? More art direction and campaign, and more like getting the big idea and doing like concepts for brands.
Ah, cool.
That I found very, very interesting.
Right.
And it was great. It still had the creative element of actually getting a picture or something in front, like a graphic or a story, but it was bigger than just getting a nice sketch. So you went with the more concept idea. You went, okay, what could the next big campaign be? The concept of it. Do we have a great idea? So it was like an idea hunt. Who had the best idea and what would be a cool idea? And that basically was the advertising agency for me. I would just look at the award books and say, oh man, look at this great idea, look at the execution, look at this film idea. And that was sort of my world for a long time. And while I was studying in Hamburg, I got the opportunity to meet great people that actually did exactly what I was looking out at that time. So and then on a funny, let's say it was a very weird coincidence. We had one great campaign. A good friend of mine, Johannes Milhofer, he was sort of my text partner. They always partnered up, like you had a text and an art partner, and those two would go for a campaign or an idea. So one was very strong in conceptually and doing more the text and idea part, and I would try to visualize those ideas in visuals or stories, and that combination was great, just to team up and sort of ping pong ideas. And we had one great campaign that an art director saw from a great agency. And that time it was Kemper Trautmann. They had great clients. The biggest one was Audi. And they hired us straight from the spot. We weren't even finished with school. And that was great because we sort of had a full pay, 2 days we should stay at the office and just do what we could do best, have great ideas and try to execute them.
Right.
So that was sort of that was the first moment where I said, okay, it feels like a bit like, you were suddenly in like an 80s advertising movies of everything exploded, okay,
right.
We can.
And that was your first time in working on car stuff?
No, that was all over the place. We were
Right.
just basically the best ideas or the best concepts we could punch out. And if they survived, we would try to execute them and try to win some kind of award or do something great with the client. But it didn't take long. It was a weird space because we sort of got pulled out of our study. Sort of like, okay, guys, great team. This is awesome. Let's do something. And then it's sort of, it didn't quite fit in with the rest of the team of an agency. So where do these weird two guys go? And then we sort of dropped out again. But the turning point in that story is that's where I met Faruk, because they had like campaigns with Audi, and then Alex Rank, who was his partner then, did the photography and Faruk producing and photography, and they say, okay, have a look at this. Go to Farok and let's see what that's all about. Because I think they had a few credits left from an Audi spot or Volkswagen, I think, and they say they still owe us like a few prints and a bit of retouching work. Just go and execute your ideas there, and then we sort of got in touch, and that was sort of the beginning. It's like, okay, this is interesting, because it was very, for me, like I'm pretty focused and always try to make things better. That goes well with my art direction and with the painting in the hand, because I can control it. But it was very tiring, because you could always make an idea better. And that was sort of really, really tiring. I would go to bed and I couldn't turn off. I just kept on thinking, okay, is this really good? Is this a great idea? Is it a gold idea? In the advertising industry, it's always like, okay, can we get to Cannes with this? And so it's very, you have to compete with the best.
Right.
And it's just very competitive.
Sure.
Also, who had the idea? Who owns the idea? Is that a great idea? I've seen that idea. It's a rubbish idea.
Right.
Come up with something new. I've seen this 1,000 times. It's.
Yep.
You have to. It gets very personal, because the idea is really. You have to invest quite a lot to bring out a good idea.
Right.
And then if you don't get anything back, you sort of drain. It doesn't feel good.
Sometimes you just have to go with the first idea and not.
Yeah.
And not sort of dwell on it.
In the agency, you always were competing with the other ideas.
Sure.
You would look it up. Okay, they've done this. They've done that. They've done this. This is nothing new. Come up with something new, something great, something inspiring. And that was, it wasn't also the thing that I could do best. So it sort of drifted off in a space where my skills weren't the skills I actually had. You know, like only concept. I like to do things with my hands and get the things to look nice.
Yep.
And it drifted away a bit. So, and I saw other people. I met other people that could easily execute a very, very good idea.
Right.
And that was sort of like, okay, maybe not quite my spot. I'll go back to creating stuff with different tools. And that part was, I went more into retouching for a very short time. And then Farok said, okay, I think it was like one guy in this, the scope wasn't, it just was founded. It was very new. It was sort of like,
okay. What year is this approximately?
Let me have a look. I sort of sketched out my bio. So I started at the scope 2009.
Okay. Wow. You've been there a while.
So that's been, yeah. Actually, now I'm the oldest employee.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah. I've been a long time.
That's awesome.
So that is quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
And since then, I got my hands dirty with everything I could do with CG, 3D. It's been very technical, but the possibilities were just amazing. This was like, wow.
Right.
I can do light. I can turn this. I can change that. I can make it look even more realistic than just paintings. I can.
And was it? Farouk's been on the podcast as well, and obviously he has a strong background in photography.
Yeah.
And a background there. So did you like learn from that? Because obviously you did a lot of realistic drawings, or you were interested in realism in a lot of ways. But did you look at his background in photography and add that knowledge to your?
It was always about getting something that is artificial to look realistic.
Sure.
You make a cube, and then that cube should evolve into a nice bridge and look like a bridge.
Sure.
The few polygons you have, you should sort of have to morph them into something that is believable or something that is interesting.
Sure.
And on here at the Scope, I met also an amazing piece because it's a very small and intense like production. It's not like a film production. You have like you have the agency, you have big clients. We had great clients, or still have, just because the level of the photographers that would work with Faruk, like Alex Rank, Mats Kort, Kai-Uwe Gundlach, Uwe Duttmann. Those are really big names in the advertising industry. And you would sit right next to them, and they would go very intense like projects, and you would just learn a bunch of stuff.
Wow.
That was the I would say the best education I got from those guys.
Yeah.
And probably many more. That was just like just on the top of my head, the names that sort of most influenced me.
One of the things I think is sort of fascinating, because there's a lot of people that create beautiful car photography and beautiful car images, right? There's a lot of those that are out there. I think one of the things that fascinated about me when I spoke to Faruk and I was looking at your work and at the Scope is that you guys create a surrounding to a car that becomes almost as important as the car, right? And this happens all the time in photography. People do running footage. They travel all over, like, go to Iceland to film cars moving around, volcanoes or whatever. But people do that all the time. But you guys really sort of took that to heart digitally and sort of thought about the narrative of this place that you guys have created. Yeah. How do you guys think about that? How do you think about like environments in that way?
It sort of was a natural process because the traditional way you would do it, you would sort of like have a shoot, a classical shoot. Mm-hmm. Then you would have Photoshop, and then you would try to put in those elements that you were thinking of. Like, okay, we cut out the car, we place the building here, we will put a bridge there, and
right.
And it's sort of and if it wasn't shot right, you were sort of stuck to it, and it didn't look good.
Sure.
And it went very quickly that the opportunity in 3D was actually to create that space around the car and integrate everything into one picture. Right? You look at the picture, and that time it was Maxwell, a great renderer for lighting.
Yeah. Very slow.
Very slow, but very satisfying. Very satisfying in every part of from the perspective of a photographer. Mm-hmm. It was very, very realistic. You would turn the light, and the photographer could say, okay, this looks familiar. Okay, this is actually what I was expecting it to be. And they were very, very. Of course, it took a bit of time, but the scenes also were smaller. But the result was very, very satisfying.
Actually, I think that's an important part of the discussion, because you're absolutely right. Maxwell was well renowned as a highly accurate, unbiased, or classically unbiased ray tracer, which is what made it slow. But when you do an unbiased renderer, you sort of eliminate a lot of the hacks and stuff that are going on, so that you really kind of stick to the fundamentals of ray tracing. And so when you do that and you have that discussion with a photographer, like you said, it's the same thing, right?
Yeah. It was very predictable because we had one project just to sort of see how it went. The Alex Ranks, actually a great photographer, the partner with Faruk. Mm-hmm. It was pretty. Yeah, it must have been right at the beginning. They actually built a set. Like, they had a model car, about this size. Then they built a set with. He had a very particular idea of how the set would look and how the light would show. It's like a big big stone room of travertine, stone walls, very nicely designed, very clean design. And
So he
would
built it
have
as a model or as
a
a
model
okay.
in this. I think even in this room here.
Yeah.
And then he would light it. He would
Right.
see how it would look. He would go with the camera in, cut holes into the angle, and the building was really, really simple. It was just like a few blocks, but it had, from the texturing side, it was quite interesting because it was very fine texture, very high resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And then we threw Maxwell at it, positioned the lights exactly where he had them, and it looked nearly exactly the same. It was worthwhile.
Right.
And he was really fast with the lighting and all that stuff on
Sure.
the real set. And I would just go, okay, Alex, where did you put that light? Okay, this goes here, this goes here. And it was like a little sequence. It was a
Yep.
personal project from him. And it turned out well. It ages very good. I like to look at it till now.
I think it's really good when you collaborate, when you take tools that are, like full ray tracing tools and you collaborate with real photographers. It just makes that experience so much better, right? Yeah.
And then from that sort of very basic, approach of doing a very basic set. I mean, you had all the bounces and all. It was a complex set from the light.
Mm-hmm.
But then we had a great collaboration. I went a few years with Tino Schädler. Tino Schädler is a set designer. It's a very well-known set designer also in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
He did let me just look him up a bit, just to get the details right. If I don't say anything wrong about him.
Yeah.
He studied with Daniel Liebeskind.
Oh yeah,
very
famous architect.
And then he got well known for Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Harry Potter and all that.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And the it was great because we had great clients. We did a big campaign for Mercedes, and they pulled Tino into the production, and then we, with Maxwell still and great photographer, I think Mats Kort, great photographer, had a very ambitious campaign. It was like big futuristic sets, and that came out as Tron Legacy was out there, and everyone was looking at it and saying, hey, this is cool. This is sort of this yeah, exactly. That's sort of a nice link, because that was influenced. That was an influence for this Mercedes campaign. And Tino Schädler did the set design. It was all very sleek and nice glass buildings, a glass of structures. I would say very abstract, very light, very modern, way ahead of its time. The clients and they were quite nervous about it because they were saying, oh, what are these guys doing? But it turned out really successful for them. But we were like way ahead with this sort of.
I don't know if you know this, but the guy who was in the short, who was the bank teller in the short that we just did.
The one that presses the
button, yeah. That's Ben Proctor, who was the production designer, one of the production designers on Tron Legacy. Also Avatar, but
yeah.
But
no, I didn't know that, but there were too many fantastic people there. I could. Yeah.
So I'm just saying, it's funny, small world, right?
Yeah, but that was very influential for that project, and it was great to collaborate like with Tino. Very, very good art directors, very good clients, very good photographers. Faruk put out all the hardware. He was always invested in get the newest stuff, the fastest stuff, and that was very helpful. Very small pipeline, very flexible. We would change it for a project just to get the right thing, tools to do the stuff. That's awesome. And that was. And that's
cool.
sort of like how, sort of like slowly evolving into 3D is sort of like a very weird way.
Yeah.
I didn't plan it, but so that was, and since then, I'm a CG nerd.
Yeah, well, a very good one, but also a very creative one, which I think is really, really cool because it does make a difference. Just being someone who understands and who cares. Honestly, Matthias, one of the things that I really appreciated the most about when I was interacting with you is that I could sense you cared about how things looked, and you wanted it to look. It's like, I can make this look a little better. I would like to make this look a little better.
It does bother me. It does bother me quite a bit. Yeah, but if I know I still have the time, and I'll do it. Yeah.
Which is,
and it does pay
great.
off, I think, because once for me, it's not about. Of course, it's about the image and the product we do, and the better it gets, I think the more benefit it has for everyone. It doesn't help if you just cut off the last 10%. But those 10%, those make it rememberable and make it, and it also is rewarding for me because I draw that energy back out of it if it gets to that status. Right. And then I can rest and go, okay, next one.
Sure.
And so that's it's a bit it does take power and sort of has its downsides. But looking back at it, it's always rewarding and worthwhile doing that little more care and putting that little more effort into it to get where you actually can, where you know it could be.
So how did obviously I talked to Farouk about what we were trying to do with Vantage, and then I told him a little bit about Project Arena. But how did you get it? Like when you heard, like how did he come up to you and say, "Hey, I'm going to work with Chaos on this thing"? Like how did this come to you?
He's always very. How do you come? He said, I can't really remember. I think it started with. I always wanted to show the sets and the stuff. I don't know if it was connected with those mountains or that.
I think the first thing was we had that big scene that you guys had created that was huge. It was like 1 trillion polygons or whatever. Yeah, and he was telling me, can you actually put this in Vantage? Like, would this actually render in real time? Yeah. Because I think this struggle that he had was that there was a lot of people that were asking him to do the quality of work that you guys do, which is very, very high and very, very detailed, to work inside of Unreal. And that became too much. Yeah. Like this, Unreal couldn't handle either the workflow or what you were doing in the same way. And you guys had already been working with V-Ray. So I said, that will work in Vantage. And I think he told me, prove it. Here's the scene.
Yeah. And I can't remember how he approached it. He said, just Matthias, get it to work and try. I think I didn't have to actually change anything. I think we just packed it up. And
you gave me the scene. You gave me the scene, and it kind of worked. And I was like, oh my God, this works in Vantage. It looks great. And as I was going through the process of trying to do this short, and I had to figure out this train sequence. And honestly, I didn't really know what it was going to look like outside the train. I was like, I don't know. And then it was just going to be very plain desert looking thing. And I said, wait a minute. And I opened the scene that you guys got, and I was like, does it really need to be plain? Yeah, okay. What if it was super rich? And that's when I said, can we do a train sequence? And so did he tell you about the short, or how does that?
As I mentioned, it sort of evolved. He wouldn't tell me, I think, the whole thing, just because it was sort of like, I would go, are you crazy? Is this gonna? I would sort of probably go, step on the brakes and say, let's think about this. And he would go, no, I've already sold it, Matthias. It's going to work. So but that's also a very good quality because you do get things done if you just go with the flow and you just fix the stuff that has to be fixed, and the other thing just falls into place. And with having a bit of knowledge and how to sort of execute that, it actually went really fine. It wasn't like also the transition to Vantage was like a no-brainer. It was really straightforward. I had one.
That was almost
one or
surprising.
I had one or two like little questions about proxies and how the instancing would work and how the scattering to achieve it.
Right.
But it felt very soft. I think I didn't even look at the manual, to be honest. Now I have on that, but
it worked surprisingly easily, to be honest. To give people a little recap history on this, and there was obviously the scene that we mentioned, how I said, oh no, we should make it really rich, and what if we got the scope involved? But the original layout of these train tracks actually came from a friend of mine named Art Cyan, who I worked with on Tron and a bunch of other things as well. He's really cool. But Art sort of figured out the length of the track, the speed of the train, and the turn into the tunnel. Like this was like we were timing it for previs. And so he created this previs scene that did that. And I said, okay. And then I gave you guys like, here's the track, make everything else. And here's where the bridge is, and here's where the tunnel is.
The layout was really straightforward.
Yeah,
it was
long though. It's like 5 kilometers.
it was the scene scale.
Yeah,
and I exactly know why you did it, because you wanted to have that long run, and without any cuts, it should just the train should just keep on going, that you would be able to produce without running out of track. Right.
But it's a lot.
I actually took those stats from the scene because it was like a thing. How many polygons do we actually have? How big is the set in real?
It's trillions of polygons.
And I had to write it down because I wouldn't remember the numbers. But I'll just give you a few one. Okay. The length of the whole scene from back to front is 9.5 miles.
Wait, what?
From mountain to mountain, what you can see.
9 miles.
Not the track.
Not the track.
Is more.
Okay,
the track, but of course, you look over the prairie and you look about the mountains, and you see the last mountains. So 9.
Which is how many kilometers? Because we have people.
82 square miles. That's 133 square kilometers. The whole set. It has 1,000 unique meshes, 6 million instant meshes, and now there comes the big number. It has 1,923,000,000,000 triangles. And that ran in real time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And that was like it probably could have done more. I actually wasn't aware that these numbers are going to get so big. But
yes. How many instances did we have?
6.1 million.
Okay.
But then they're like nested instances. So I wouldn't. I would have one big mountain. I had like 4 or 5 mountain types, right? And that one mountain would be sort of like duplicated again and sort of, blended into the next mountain to get that big, vast area. So it wasn't unique in every aspect, but it was enough to actually walk around on ground and having every piece of grass visible.
Every piece of grass was in there,
and that we actually. We actually did that on set, just playing around because he had that great computer there, and we had what was his name?
Rado.
Who came back? No, Rado. Rado and Vlado were next to me, but we had a guest who came by. Let me just quickly. Edward Dyson Taylor.
Oh yeah,
from,
Ed.
from-
Yep. CG Pro.
who also did or had quite a bit of knowledge on the Lion King and the work he did there. And we would walk, like there's the walk mode in Vantage. We'd just go walk on, and he couldn't believe it, and we hadn't seen it as well. And you could walk on, and the detail was just coming and coming, and
Just nonstop.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's no level of detail, right? It's just the full
it's
geometry
just
the whole time.
straight on full geometry.
Yep.
There was one fun fact. To walk the full set in Vantage at an average speed, you would probably have 3 hours and 8 minutes to cross the whole plane. So if someone wants to have a nice scenery, just walking through the nice prairie,
Yep.
you can do that for 3 hours and not see the same thing.
Well, it was fun because when we were on the train, we would be on the train. It's like, all right, let's go through the tunnel again. You just sit there and went, okay, here comes the tunnel, and it would just happen over and over again. It was quite a set. I mean, it was just beautiful. What was your feeling when you went, like, obviously you had worked on this. We had worked on this together, and I remember going back and forth, and the bridge and the gorge and the tunnel, and you did a fantastic job. And by the way, Art Cyan provided some of the concept art of, like, here's what I've seen for bridges and here's what I've seen for tunnels, and you guys matched that really great. As well as with Erick Schiele's ideas as well. But when you went on set and you saw everything sort of put together, what were some of your initial feelings?
Well, the performance and the scale, the scale of the set and the scale of the wall in on set. I mean, that sort of was really, because you had, like, your whole vision was sort of caught by the big scenery, right. And we had a few. It was great. You would have to really stand still. So okay, it's going over the gorge, and you would sort of get, like, you would wobble around because everything was moving,
right?
And you could see until the horizon the mountains going by, the little grass bushes in front sort of whizzing by. It was great. It's very, very believable. It's very, very nice.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing to sort of see that play at that scale. And that we didn't quite know if it was going to play.
No, it was You
remember that first day? We had a technical issue, and just to let people know what the technical issue is, I'll be very upfront about it. Is because we were working on a orbital stage that was used to working with Unreal sets, right? Because a lot of virtual productions done with Unreal. And there was a way of distributing the data, specifically the maps and everything, that is a way that they used to doing it in Unreal. And for us, we were just like, as long as everyone reads the same data, it's all fine. But it was a little bit hard to coordinate all the names and all of the data across all the different nodes. Yeah. And we were having problems doing that. And it was the scariest moment for me because we didn't get it to all the syncing, and some classic network issues of, is everyone reading the same files, right? Yeah. But we didn't get it to work until 4:00. And it had to run, like, it had to be perfectly running by 8:00 the next morning. And at 4:00 in the afternoon, I'm like, it's still not working. And I almost started smoking again. I was getting that nervous.
Yeah, I remember it very well because I also went back to the hotel and I went through all the instances. I went through all all the resources. Are they all correct? Are they all linked up? Are they sort of all relative and not
Yep.
Yeah, but it was that was quite a
It's just a classic mapping situation, which, by the way, is totally solvable and easy to solve. But it was like, this is set up differently in this facility. But we got it working, and then once it ran, it was like flawless, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it didn't have one crash, and it went did its thing.
3 days solid, no crashes.
Yeah. No, that was great, and the iteration was also great to see how moving the poles, moving. Getting different sequences, the playback, also the readjusting of light, that was very, very interesting. you could turn the sphere, or Richard Cruder would say, okay, put a bit more here, a bit lighter, and that was a little like instant. You could see it in frame. That was a really good experience. It was.
Yeah. What was your experience like?
Awesome.
Obviously, you've done a bunch of stuff with photography. You've done with worked with photographers as well. How was this different working on set? Obviously, there's actors, there's action, and a bunch of things. What were the big key differences that you noticed here?
A lot of people, far bigger production. I mean, you get things similar to in a real car production, a real car film, but that wasn't sort of like our thing. That was like one photographer sitting next to you and going through all the details, the perspectives. It's a more quiet and concentrated working than getting everything done in one big moment and everyone on track. And that was a bit intimidating. Was sort of like at the beginning I was, where am I now? So is this gonna, what's my part here? It wasn't quite. I was at the beginning. I was sort of like, oh,
right.
Yeah, I'll just stand back and have a look.
I wanted,
and then,
when Farouk said, I was like, I would love to have one of you guys there, because like, if something goes wrong with the scene or something happens, I need someone there to just know how to fix things.
I actually did feel needed in some places and I was happy to be there. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Because there were a few things where it was just a lot going on at the same time. Rada was doing some programming, setting up the stage. Vlada was scripting things on the last minute or trying to figure things out, and I was sort of working on the scene and get those the projection right. So that would have been one guy less, would have been, I think, quite a hassle. And so I was glad to be trying to get everything I can throw at and to help you guys.
For sure. What was it like? I mean, I've been friends with Erick Schiele for well over 20 years, but what was it like working with Erick?
Erick is it's amazing. It's like a story, a book of stories all the way. Every place, every corner you go, he has something to tell, something funny, something interesting. Yeah. Very, very creative, very very inspiring. He has ideas everywhere. He's never short of ideas. Great taste, great concept. I mean, all the writing and all the stories he has in his head. It was very inspiring. Nearly with everyone I talked with, it was like I was quite. I said, okay, I can learn something here. These guys are really, they know what they're doing. Erick's knowledge of Los Angeles is quite amazing. So when you were hanging out with him and you were saying, this is my first time in Los Angeles, it's like, Erick's a good person to hang out with. That would be a great tour. He would know. I mean, if you could book him for a tour, I would say I would. He would take you to some scary places, though. Yeah, well, that could be. It could go a bit. It could go wrong. Right. But that would be the interesting part. But you could drop him pretty much anywhere in Los Angeles, and you'll say, you know what? Just around the corner here is where they filmed 1974. Yeah. They filmed, some whatever it is. Yeah, he was really kind. He actually gave me a real nice poster or a set shot from a bridge. I don't know which film it was from the 50s. Very, very cool picture. Yeah, that was great. After he knows it, I really thanked him for it. Awesome. But those stories were really, really quite. They were very interesting, very cool, and it's just a walking knowledge, piece of knowledge right next to you, just telling you all this interesting stuff. And, Yeah. Well, I was super glad that you were able to come on set. You're part of the pre-design, because this is part of the journey that I think that this process is important. I mean, you were part of the pre-design of this, let's make this happen. And you didn't
shy away from every blade of grass. Everything was there, right? You created the entire everything that was there, and we used that from the very early stages. We used it on pre-production, and then we used it in post-production. You guys did the essentially the running footage of these trains, right? And so tell a little bit about the post-production process of working on this stuff.
It was pretty straightforward because the scene is identical. You
use the same scene.
And for V-Ray, you don't have to change anything. You just do a few different render settings. So it's basically the same scene. You just open Maya. It's all done in Maya. And you just choose right at the end, I'm going to do this in Vantage, or I'm going to do this in V-Ray. I need higher quality, bigger frame resolution. Like for instance, I think we did the poster or the that's sort of like a few adjustments here, a few set details more in the front, adjusting a few buildings, and you would have this great image right from the set we actually used on the virtual stage. So it was just a bit of refining. I think the train went one step further with refining on textures, because we didn't see that on the stage because we had the set design on stage. You were actually in the train. But it was basically the same thing.
Right. And we added smoke. We had smoke and
we did, and that was something that we did in Phoenix. Went really well, straightforward. That was...
So it was nice that we were able. We basically used the same scene, right? The same train.
It is not. It is exactly the same scene.
Right.
It is. There's no difference.
Right. It's interesting.
Yeah. Without you have a bit more detail. You have a bit more resolution and more time to look at it. So you do place a few things more. You do add a chair there, a bush here, and refine the mountains a bit. But basically just shifting things. It's not like creating one set and then have a higher set for the
same thing you would do on set, right? We moved buildings around here and there for certain shots, for sure. What about obviously, you guys have done, like I said, a lot of car commercials and stuff like that, but then you got these direction from Dan as like, I want the camera to shake like crazy or do this. And so it had a lot more sort of action movie feel to things, right?
That was a bit new to me because the way I approached it, I actually tracked the motion of a horse. So I put a constraint on the horse back, or on the horse top, or on the horse on the saddle, so I had different states of movement.
Right.
And then I'll put the jiggle on the camera, and then I would just go with bands or the framing you had sort of set up. And then I would just dial in the horse motion or the jiggle motion on the train, and it went really, really easy.
Yeah.
But that was sort of not hand done, because I said, okay, I'm not going to do this, but the big motion, yes. But all the jiggling what I actually took off. I think even from Chaos, you have that one horse galloping through.
Oh, right.
For the dust. And I just put different constraints on different parts of the horse to see the motion, how it would look like, and took that for the,
Yeah,
so,
that's awesome.
So the horse motion was actually a real motion, because I thought if I don't do that, it will feel weird.
Right.
Or I can't figure out where it's weird. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was trying to, we were... You'd done, and your stuff looks really, really cool. I mean, especially a lot of the train, us going into the tunnel looks amazing. And also, we said we need an establishing shot of the whole town, and he was like, no problem.
That's a fun one. That looks nice. I still like it. It hasn't been out yet, but it's I've looked at it quite some time, and it ages well. I've done everything I could to make it nice, and so I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I think that shot looks really great. And by the time this podcast comes out, the short will be out, so people will love it. But yeah, I think that shot looks really, really great. And it was cool because I was able to, you were able to work with Mark Rienzo, who was our compositor And he was able to take that and take all your raw renders and match the look that we had from in camera, right, and the color and everything else. So, and get the right lens flares that were in there to get all that.
It's turned out really nice.
Yeah, and it's great. It's the same scene. Like, to think about the fact that, you know, that establishing shot of the whole town is the same town that I'm running in. Right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So
that's also a big time saver. I mean, on our team is like Marcel, our Houdini guy who did the bridge. Bridge
he did model the whole bridge.
It's all procedurally done. It's a great design. Very quick turnarounds on changes. Florian helped us a bit with the Florian von Beer, who's a technical partner by the scope. He hooked us up with Vantage, did all the research on what we needed on the technical side, and basically that was the team for all the stuff. So it was very easy, very quick. I don't think we had a big back and forth with anything. It was pretty straightforward and just making better and better and better, or fixing little, let's say, creative things, but not the big technical thing. Was very solid, very straightforward.
And we're able to hand that stuff over to the scope, who did all the explosion stuff, and they just took care of all of that stuff as well. So, which was great.
You mean?
I mean, sorry. Bottle ship.
Yeah. That's the last gig joke. That's hilarious. I love it. It's
yep. It turned out really good. Yeah, and it was interesting because we knew that, you know, for the ending shot, we had created that set, and we didn't want it to be exactly the same bridge as the other bridge, so we needed to make it different. But Dan wanted a specific look, so I was like, well, give us the right reference of what that is. And then Dan painted the whole thing over itself, and so it created this. And he says, I want it to look eclectic Western matte painting. And it does. It did. It was such a fun thing to work with you guys and to be able to sort of see, like, are we actually going to pull this off? Are we actually going to be able to get this massive, I didn't realize it was 9 miles long, set to work for everything.
Nor did I. I actually realized it looking it up, because you said, okay, we need these stats. We need this sort of scene. And I looked it up and I thought, am I wrong by a little, like, by 1 decimal point, or is that something? But it is major big.
Yeah, it's
but
major.
It didn't feel big. That's a cool thing.
Right.
I wasn't aware of it actually duplicating mountains and mountains and prairie land after prairie land.
Right.
It didn't disturb me, but I didn't realize till now that it actually was that big.
Yeah.
You know, looking at just because the request was there, so I had to write it down. And
it turned out great. It turned out really cool. I'm very, very happy about the general look of this, because it was just perfect. And the one shot that scared me, that I didn't know if we were going to be able to pull off, was the shot out of the back of the train when the riders are crossing the train tracks and coming towards us, because we shot those guys as live action, right? Yeah. And then we were going to roto them out and put them into the scene. And I was like, is this going to work? Because I didn't want to have to animate a CG character. I wanted real actors and real horses, because one, we had access to that, and we actually filmed them for real. And and was the timing going to work? Was it, you know, can I get the feet to go in? And it just worked. I was like, I was so scared, but I was like, nope, I think this is going to work. And they were,
It did work. It did have a few little things where I said, okay, can we tweak this a bit more?
Yeah.
But then it also, it's doing the job. And
once we had the dust in there, you totally sold it. Yeah. The dust, which was important. Like you needed the dust in there. So, it was fun.
And that was also great. I was sort of a bit skeptical of all this animation and stuff because the scene scale is so big.
Right.
You would have to simulate, where the train actually starts.
Right.
And that's like 5 or 6 seconds before.
Right.
You'd have to simulate to the point where it gets interesting, and then you say, "Oh, okay, is this interesting?" I know. Okay, run the whole thing again. Okay,
right.
And now the smoke's coming up, and now the horse digging his hooves into or his feet into the ground.
Yep.
But that's it turned out, and Phoenix was really easy to handle that. It's a great piece of software.
What was also funny for me was that we had done a bunch of things, and we were going to incorporate some stock footage, which we did. There's a couple of shots of our stock footage, which you can tell, because I just was like, I don't know if we have time to do all this, and I didn't want to burden everyone with a bunch of things. That's like, if we can get some of this with stock, it'd be great. Yeah. But there was a couple of shots that were underneath the train tracks that we had as stock footage, and it was like, oh, that's a cool shot, but it doesn't look like the same environment at all. And so I said, I don't want to go back to Matthias and ask him to do more. It's like, what if I just put a camera there in Vantage? And I did. And so those are actually rendered in Vantage offline, and just like, okay, here's some couple, and I sort of framed it because I knew it wouldn't exactly be the same as what you guys had done from the wider shots. So I sort of modeled it to look like a GoPro, like it looks a little wide, a little distorted, a little everything. So it just has a little bit more like, oh, you just threw a camera under the train tracks and it looks cool. And with the sound design, it was perfect.
Yeah, but there's a good point, because it actually was possible to do it, and
right.
it does look the same. I mean, the feeling of the set and the surrounding, you can't. Yep. You just see one different building, one piece of different grass or bushland, and you don't believe it. Okay, this is off. This doesn't fit to that.
And the lighting too. We had a very specific sunset lighting that we were involved in.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
I love the fact that we had basically sunset for 3 days.
Yeah. Not so easy to pull off in real.
No, that's so easy. Was it nice? I mean, obviously, like, one of the things I sort of was, I don't want to say unexpected, but it was really nice to see, was when we were on the train and we were doing all the shots inside, especially the bar cars sequence. And outside was actually quite bright, because so you don't necessarily see all the details that we added. You see it in the running footage, but the fact that it's quite bright outside and you can still see everything moving by is way more believable. Like, I believe that outside, photography wise, very much so. Yeah,
I mean, I was very, very aware I was very, very, let's say, interested in the way that Richard Crudo and all the lighting, the lighting staff and stuff, put up those lights and made those look in camera. I mean, you could always have the little screen on the back. You could see the shot when sort of evolving and sort of tweaking a bit of light here, dimming down there. It was amazing to see how well that turned out. Yeah. It was very, very and fast.
They're so fast, right?
It was really, really interesting to see. Okay, put this down a half over here, flag it off here, right? And the shot was done, and it looked amazing.
You have to work.
So that was very, very inspiring. It was right on point. Yeah.
It's very interesting to see, especially like a really good DP and a good crew, how quickly they operate. Because they can't waste time. Otherwise, it's very expensive. We had to do 30 shots in that first day on the train. And that's a lot of setups to get through.
That was really cool, and I was very happy for Chaos that wall was so steady and held up to the expectation, because having all the people wait and for something just because the screen goes black or something, that would have been like
stressful.
Stressful and just not good for the mood and for the whole.
Luckily, we
vibe.
dealt with that on the pre-light day when we were still building the train set. So,
not too many people noticed it, I think.
No, because they were too busy building the set and doing all the other stuff.
So it didn't stress the whole crew.
The only people that were really stressed out was James Blevins and me.
And Rado and Flado were also not quite, and I was sort of getting nervous because
they knew they would fix it eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rado was very confident. I thought he was a great guy. Very, very cool. Very, very clever.
What was the most unexpected thing that you saw happening during that process?
The most unexpected thing.
What were you the most surprised by, or excited, or happily surprised by?
I was mostly surprised and excited about actually the people you got together on that show. That was sort of like, that was a thing. I would go back to the hotel room, actually do my homework on who did I just talk to make a fool of myself. Who is this guy? And go like, oh man, okay, he actually did this and did that, and like riding with Daniel Buck in his truck, every morning over the highways and sort of talking with him.
Oh, Daniel,
I mean, everyone had like a story where you sort of go, okay, this is an extremely inspiring person. All the work and all the very, very, very cool. So that was the biggest. I wasn't expecting that sort of scale and that sort of profession. Maybe I should have done it if I did my homework, but that was very surprising and sort of like a great experience.
Yeah. Daniel and I have done many a movie together. Fast. He is one of my oldest and dearest friends. So, and he also looks like a cowboy, so it's perfect.
The acting was on point. I mean, it was very believable. I was a bit scared of him sometimes.
Daniel,
while acting, he gets really into it, and then he goes, "Wow, he's a nice guy," but when they're acting, he's a believable cowboy.
Yeah. And then James is totally over the top, which is exactly what I asked him to do.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Bigger than life. Yeah, very, very, very.
Yeah.
Well, very inspiring. Everything. Yes.
Yeah, he's very. Yeah. It's been amazing to have you on. First of all, on the project, and you being a collaborator and creative person on this project has been really, really. I mean, it's been a pleasure. I was always hoping there would be something great working with you guys, but I actually got way more than I expected. I got some fantastic creative contributions, as well as just this is something I've been waiting for a very long time, to see if we could actually do something of this nature, and you guys really proved to me that it absolutely can, and that we can have people that can focus on the creative and not have to be bogged down by the technical stuff. There was so few technical things that we actually had to worry about here. Yeah. We were focused on that's
true. Yeah.
Let's make this look
looking right. Is it? Yeah. That's and exactly it. It was just tweak that, make it look here, but it wasn't a technical thing. No.
Yeah, and that's honestly the harder problem that needs to be overcome. Like if you can have a good line of communication with creative people and work together, and you and Erick Schiele and this is how I want it to look. Okay, let's make this. Let's adjust this texture to make it look a little bit more the way I want it to look. And it was really, really refreshing to be working with you guys, and I really appreciate what we've done so far. And I really hope that we can do a lot more fun projects together in the future.
So do I. Yeah. No, Chris, this is really, it's been a very, very, very inspiring and cool journey.
Well, thank you.
Likewise, yeah.